do the work for us behind the scenes every day. It truly takes a village.
All right, and that one, we'll get started. We'll go Nathan Liu.
Amber, with the status of labor talks with so many free agents, with an expansion draft, do you have any idea what
The entire landscape of professional women's basketball just shattered into a million pieces behind closed doors. And the mainstream media completely missed the actual earthquake happening right under their noses. For months, the sports world has been entirely consumed by the absolute circus surrounding the Indiana Fever, obsessing over the intense physical beatdowns on the court and the bitter rivalries dominating the headlines. But while fans were busy arguing over hard fouls, our Rookie of the Year debates, and toxic press conferences, the Indiana Fever front office was quietly fighting a terrifying battle of their own. Management was sweating bullets because they knew a chilling truth that the public was completely blind to. The standard WNBA rookie contract is an absolute joke compared to the millions of dollars this generational star brings in every single night. And the franchise was on the verge of losing control of the greatest asset in the history of the sport. Rumors were swirling aggressively that rival leagues, overseas billionaires, and massive corporate sponsors were preparing to offer deals so enormous they could literally rip this superstar right out of Indiana's hands. Fever general manager Lynn Dunn knew she had to act fast, and what she just pulled off changes the entire future of the sport. She just confirmed a massive, unprecedented agreement that locks down their franchise cornerstone for the 2026 season. But the hidden details of this new arrangement are absolutely shocking. This wasn't just a standard piece of paper being signed in a quiet office. This was a high-stakes hostage negotiation disguised as a basketball contract, and it exposes exactly how much unbelievable power one player now holds over an entire professional sports league. But to understand why the Fever were forced into absolute panic mode, you have to look at the brutal reality this rookie went through during her first few months in the league. The moment she stepped onto a professional court, a massive target was painted squarely on her back, and it became violently clear that this wasn't just friendly competition or standard rookie hazing. It was a calculated, deeply rooted resentment from a league of veterans who felt entirely overshadowed by a player who hadn't even played a single professional game yet. Established stars who had been grinding for years for absolute pennies were suddenly watching a 22-year-old completely monopolize the media, the endorsements, and the fans. The physical retaliation was immediate, brutal, and frankly hard to watch. Blindside hits, unnecessary shoulder checks, and aggressive trash talk became a nightly occurrence on national television. Players were practically headhunting, trying to send a physical message to the new face of the league, while the referees seemed to conveniently swallow their whistles. It was an absolute gauntlet, and behind the scenes, her camp was reportedly furious. They were watching their multi-million-dollar client get thrown to the wolves while playing for a completely insulting base salary of just over $76,000. It was an absolutely absurd financial reality. She was single-handedly selling out arenas across the entire country, forcing opposing teams to move their games to massive NBA stadiums just to accommodate the crushing demand for tickets. Yet she was making less money than a substitute teacher. The financial disparity was so insane that massive celebrities, politicians, and massive sports media personalities were openly mocking the league's archaic compensation structure. So the Indiana Fever front office realized very quickly that they had a massive crisis on their hands. If they didn't find a way to protect her, support her, and compensate her heavily under the table through massive marketing agreements, she was going to burn out, walk away, or demand a trade to a franchise that would actually treat her like the royalty she was. But that wasn't the whole story. Because the tension only escalated when the league's ultimate gatekeepers made a deeply controversial decision that stunned the entire sports world and nearly pushed their golden goose to the breaking point. Being entirely left off the Paris Olympic roster was the ultimate slap in the face. It was a clear, undeniable message from the old guard of women's basketball that they were not ready to hand over the keys to the kingdom. And the selection committee made excuses about experience and team chemistry. But everyone watching knew exactly what was happening. It was a calculated move to keep her in her place. But instead of breaking her spirit, that massive rejection ignited something incredibly dangerous. It gave her weeks to rest, recover away from the toxic media cycle, and completely recalibrate her game. When the league returned from the Olympic break, she unleashed an absolute nightmare on the teams that had doubted her. She started breaking all-time assist records, hitting logo threes with terrifying consistency, and single-handedly dragging a historically terrible Indiana Fever team straight into the playoffs. She proved that the Olympic Committee had made a massive, embarrassing mistake, and the television ratings for the Olympic Games plummeted compared to her regular season WNBA matchups. But while she was busy silencing her critics on the hardwood and proving she was the undeniable main attraction, a new, massive threat was silently creeping up on the Fever front office, threatening to completely dismantle everything Indiana was trying to build. An entirely new basketball league called Unrivaled had suddenly emerged from the shadows, and it was actively striking fear into the hearts of WNBA executives. Founded by WNBA superstars Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, this heavily funded 3v3 league was actively recruiting top talent with the promise of huge payouts, unprecedented player treatment, and actual equity in the league. This new venture was perfectly designed to keep stars in the United States during the off-season, paying them massive six-figure salaries to play in Miami, instead of forcing them to travel overseas to Russia or Turkey just to make a living. The media immediately started speculating, and the rumors were absolutely deafening. Would she join? Could Unrivaled offer her a massive multi-million-dollar bag to become the face of their new venture? The fear in the Indiana front office was palpable. If she tasted the massive financial freedom and incredible VIP treatment of a private league heavily backed by billionaires, she might start deeply questioning her long-term future in the incredibly restrictive, heavily regulated WNBA. Management knew they couldn't just rely on her basic rookie-scale contract to keep her loyal. The team technically held her rights for 4 years, but in the modern era of sports, player rights mean absolutely nothing if the superstar is unhappy and decides to hold out. They had to offer her something the WNBA had never seen before, and they had to do it before outside forces completely poisoned the well. And what happened next would shock everyone, because the rival leagues weren't the only ones holding a massive stack of leverage over the Indiana franchise. So corporate sponsors were quietly pulling the strings from the shadows, and they were tired of watching their biggest investment get mistreated. You see, the WNBA doesn't actually have the deepest pockets in this situation. The real power belongs to massive global corporations like Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and Panini. When Nike handed over a groundbreaking $28 million signature shoe deal, they essentially bought a controlling stake in her career trajectory. Brands of that unbelievable magnitude do not let their premium investments play for dysfunctional organizations that fail to protect them. There were intense rumors swirling through the industry that her corporate partners were extremely unhappy with the way the Indiana Fever were managing her early career. The questionable coaching decisions, the absolute lack of an enforcer on the roster to protect her from dirty plays, and the exhausting, poorly managed media obligations were severely damaging her brand value and putting her physical health at massive risk. Whispers started circulating that if the Fever didn't completely overhaul their roster and coaching staff to better suit her fast-paced, high-octane style of play, her camp would simply leverage their corporate power to force their way out of Indianapolis. The general manager was caught in a brutal vice grip. On one side, she had the traditional rules, tight salary caps, and stubborn culture of the WNBA. On the other side, she had a billion-dollar corporate machine demanding immediate results, better protection, and an offense tailored entirely to their star. The front office realized that keeping her around for the 2026 season wasn't just about exercising a standard team option. It was about fundamentally restructuring the entire franchise to bend the knee to her specific needs. When the general manager officially confirmed the commitment for the 2026 season, it sent massive shockwaves through the entire sports industry because of what was deeply implied between the lines. This wasn't just a standard contract extension or a simple press release. According to multiple insider leaks and heavy league-wide speculation, this new agreement essentially operates as a shadow GM position. In exchange for her absolute commitment to stay in Indiana, build the franchise, and not entertain massive overseas offers or threaten a holdout, the franchise allegedly granted her unprecedented, behind-the-scenes input on the team's entire future. We are talking about massive influence over upcoming draft picks, veto power on significant roster trades, and a heavy say in who coaches the team moving forward. The highly controversial tenure of the current coaching staff has been a massive sore spot for fans all season. From bizarre late-game timeouts to questionable rotational decisions, the fan base has been screaming for a coaching change. It is widely believed in inner circles that keeping the star player happy for 2026 means the front office is fully prepared to completely clean house if she demands it. She needs a coach who understands modern, fast-paced transition basketball, not an old-school system that constantly slows down her historic playmaking ability. But the hidden power grabs didn't stop at the coaching staff. It's because the financial loopholes being exploited to secure this 2026 commitment are truly staggering. To get around the WNBA's incredibly strict salary cap limitations, the Fever and the city of Indianapolis are heavily utilizing what the league calls local marketing agreements. These deals allow the franchise to legally funnel massive amounts of sponsor money directly into her pockets, completely bypassing the league's $76,000 base salary joke. They are effectively building an entire local economy around her mere presence, locking her into the city with massive financial incentives that rival NBA contracts. Dealerships, local massive corporations, and Indiana-based brands are heavily subsidizing her income, ensuring that she is the highest-paid player in the region without technically breaking the league's collective bargaining agreement. This brilliant, incredibly sneaky maneuvering by the general manager effectively neutralized the immediate threat of rival leagues and overseas billionaires. They found a way to pay her what she is actually worth by turning the entire city of Indianapolis into her personal bank vault. But it also painted an even larger, more dangerous target on the franchise. The rest of the league is now completely terrified of what is brewing in Indiana. Rival owners and general managers are looking at the Fever and realizing that the entire power dynamic of the WNBA has permanently shifted overnight. For 25 years, the teams and the league office held all the leverage, severely underpaying players, forcing them to fly commercial, and making them play overseas just to make a decent living. Now, one single rookie has completely flipped the script, forcing a historic franchise to hand over the keys to the kingdom just to keep her happy through the 2026 season. Veterans who have spent decades building this league are quietly furious that a player in her early 20s is essentially dictating league policy, forcing the immediate implementation of private charter flights and heavily influencing franchise roster construction. The jealousy in the locker rooms across the country is reaching a boiling point, and then the physical fouls and hard hits are only going to get worse as opposing teams try to physically intimidate the one player they cannot financially compete with. The upcoming 2025 and 2026 seasons are shaping up to be an absolute bloodbath, with the Fever now fully committed to building a ruthless, heavily protected super team around their untouchable star. They are actively scouting for enforcers, elite rim protectors, and knockdown shooters to surround her, utilizing the massive influx of cash she brought to the organization to lure top-tier free agents to Indiana. Yet the most shocking element of this entire saga is the impending expiration of the WNBA collective bargaining agreement. The Players Association recently announced they are opting out of the current CBA, setting the stage for a massive labor war in 2025. And sitting right at the center of this multi-million-dollar negotiation is the 2026 contract commitment from the Indiana Star. Because she brings in millions of viewers, sells out every arena, and single-handedly secured the league a new monumental television deal worth over $2 billion with major networks, she holds the ultimate trump card. The union knows they can use her massive popularity to demand higher salaries, better revenue sharing, and upgraded facilities for everyone. But at the same time, the Indiana Fever know they have locked down the most valuable piece on the chessboard. So the quiet contract confirmation by the GM wasn't just about securing a player. It was the ultimate declaration of war against the old WNBA establishment. It proved that the Indiana front office isn't just trying to compete for a championship. They are trying to completely monopolize the future of women's sports by building an empire around one singular, unstoppable force. They are willing to bend the rules, alienate the traditionalists,